Hello everyone, this is Brian. Welcome to my Reusable KSP series, episode 2.4. Tonight I'm going to be parking a probe for Laythe in orbit and then adding a bunch of station parts to the station. The station's at 100 kilometers. This will go up to a low orbit in position for a Hohmann transfer. Now I timed this launch where the station would be almost directly overhead, so that this would be positioned in a lower orbit and then could catch up and then launched. And then just noticed that I lost targeting, so I just had to reset it there. Now for some reason my frame rates have gotten so bad, this 25-minute flight took over 2 hours to complete. So what I've done is I sped this up so that the mission clock more or less will correspond with real time. And sometimes it makes it look like it's sped up too much, like when I'm moving the camera around, but otherwise kind of like it this way. Hope you do too. In a minute we'll separate off this second stage and return the first stage back to the KSC. Now the first rule about landing a first stage booster is don't try and detach the second stage low in the atmosphere. I waited until the apoapsis of this entire rocket was up around, I think it was like 48 or 50 kilometers or something. That way that booster has plenty of time here up in the upper atmosphere to turn itself around. If you try, it's traveling at 1200 meters per second right now. If I try to turn it around in the lower atmosphere, one of two things would happen. It would either not turn, or it would turn kind of in an out of control way because the mass is closer to the engines, or I wouldn't be able to turn it at all. So you got to do it up here where the air is thin. Now on the boost back, I'm going to boost until this rocket is going past the KSC. It should impact the hills beyond the KSC if I don't do anything. That'll give me enough time to use the engines again to slow down and deploy the parachutes, which will steepen the trajectory to come straight down. Okay, now that I got that fairing off there on the right-hand side, I'll talk about this payload a little bit. Directly above that fuel tank is a station component with 4 docking nodes that is just purely just to facilitate other things coming up and docking with the station. And then the gold covered modules are basically adapters / tugs. So if I've got a 3.75 meter payload, that first tug can detach itself, go get that 3.75 dock to it, and bring it back and dock it to a 5 meter node, and so forth and so on down the line to the small 1.25. Now the small 1.25 is attached to a truss. The truss has docking nodes on it that correspond to the docking nodes on my interplanetary transfer stage, Kerbin SOI transfer stage, so that 2 of those boosters can come attached to this and be symmetrical while they accelerate it up to speed, at which point it will detach the very top part there. That big complicated looking thing is the actual probe itself, and I'll have to get into that at some other time. Okay, on the left there, my boost back is now complete. I got to immediately turn this thing around again, so it's going down engine first. And once again, you got to do this high up in the atmosphere. So sometimes the boost back, you need to angle it up just a little bit to keep the altitude up. Now on the left, as this thing re-enters and gets hot, I do have a little bit of a margin there for some engine deceleration to help with the heating. Now that I'm getting close, I can use the engine a little bit more to bring this down to safe parachute deployment speeds. And over there on the right, the next burn will be the Hohmann transfer. And then right after that, I'm going to change the inclination just slightly to better align the orbits. Alright, now to get these two docked up, what I do is I aim the butt end of this vehicle at the other one, because I'm going to detach that engine and get it out of there. That will expose the docking port. And then switch to the other one and aim it at this one. And it's just a simple matter of flying one into the other. Somewhere right in here, I'm realizing I'm having some kind of a control issue, and it took me a minute, but I finally realized I just need to switch the control point up to the docking node. And of course now I put myself into a little bit of a pickle. There's some chores to do on this before I can start controlling it, and it is actually aimed directly at the other spacecraft. So getting a little nervous. Finally hitting the wrong keys here. Finally I realize I'm just going to fire up the main engine and get out of here. All right, not the smoothest docking in the world. Had one little bounce there. It's kind of difficult with kind of some control issues going on here, and those being big, heavy pieces. All right, let's get this engine back down to the surface. So what I do here is I just aim this retrograde and I watch my apoapsis figures up there at the top and just burn until I see it around 72, 75 kilometers. Then I'll go about halfway around the planet, circularize, and sometimes I'm lucky and that circularization burn can happen along with the deorbit burn, but I don't think it happens that way this time. Then I set up a 400 DV retrograde burn that puts me right on target with the KSC. Now the node there is really just for timing. So what I do here is I switch it to just kind of manual navigation, heading 270, pitch 0, and then I just burn until I see that red X right where I want it.
I fall down on the street. Must I lie? Why must I lie? Why must I lie? Yeah, why must I lie? You know the world is doing duty. Lovely creatures walk the street. You know these eyes of mine. The true duty.
Well, that was very interesting. Apparently, if you're coming in with time acceleration on, the heating is not applied correctly, so that heat shield burned right up. And the explosion actually set this thing off course, so we're looking at a short landing now.
Didn't say the wrong thing. Why did I have to be a guy? Why must the last thing I see be the bright moon in the daylight sky? Hey. Just can't do what people want and leave my kitten all alone. I'm drinking whiskey from a glass and I live in a stone. I didn't say the right thing. Why did I have to be a guy? Why must the last thing I see the bright moon in the daylight sky?
Alright, one nice thing about these little tiny landing pods is that you can land them on uneven ground fairly easily. Okay, so there we go. Now, next up is to fly the booster, the second booster, into orbit. However, I've already flown that mission. It already went successfully, so I'll probably start with that already connected to the station. Thank you for watching. Have a great evening, and as always, fly with confidence.